Hello, this is Mike. In this screencast, I want to look at one of the most crucial stages in the social media planning cycle: identification of the target audience. Who is our message going to be aimed at, and how we're going to reach them? In particular, I'd like to argue that this is really just a problem of market segmentation. Whether we're in the real world or the physical world, it's about grouping customers together, usually by some basic common characteristics, and choosing the sectors or segments that we wish to target. So I want to look at the basic logic of market segmentation, some of the common bases used to carve up a market, and briefly touch on some of the profiling systems available to us. So let's take an initial look at the underlying rationale behind segmentation practices. It doesn't really matter whether we're talking about a social media business or the corner shop at the end of our road in the physical world. It's never possible, or very, very rarely at least, for any company to be able to target the entire population with its product or service. I think we can probably think of one or two monopoly situations where that is feasible, but I bet most of us, wherever we're based in the world, would have trouble filling a hand in terms of the number of fingers we'd be picking up to count them. So most of the time we have to identify bits of the market that we can realistically service and attempt to convert into customers. And that's the underlying basis of market segmentation. We take the aggregate market, divide it up into appropriate groups of potential customers, evaluate them in terms of how reliably, efficiently, and profitably we can reach them, and we'll stick with some segments and discard others from our equation. And that's pretty much it. Market segmentation goes back hundreds of years to feudal systems where land was again carved up into different sectors and people were allowed to sell produce in particular areas. It's pretty much the same principle, except that probably since the 1970s, in particular, where we've had massive advances in communications technology, computer power has enabled us to do segmentation in a far more precise and scientific way. And since the 70s, organizations have been pretty much in a race. If you look at, say, the big supermarkets, it really is a battle to try to find who can have the most efficient segmentation system in order to reach particular groups of customers better than their competitors. If we look at this schematic, we can see a really useful summary of segmentation in action. The circle on the left, as we can see, contains lots of different colored dots. These represent different types of people. It may be that the different colors represent age, education, income, gender. Could be anything or any combination. Segmentation is about plucking out the different colors according to common characteristics and grouping them together, then evaluating each of these right-hand circles with the different colored dots in to see which colors we're going to go for and which we're going to leave to our competitors or other people because we can't efficiently reach them. It's as simple as that, dividing the market into groups of customers with distinctly similar characteristics and evaluating whether we want them or not as customers. Now, it's how you determine what those groups are going to be that's crucial to segmentation. What makes the red dots different to the yellow dots? There are lots of different ways, but I want to highlight three common segmentation bases that we might use: geographical, geodemographic, and psychographic. You know, most segmentation systems, no matter how sophisticated they are involve these bases or some combination of them. So let's start with the most simple of all, geographical. Some of you may recognize this map. Others probably won't. But this is the state of Alabama. And the blue and white areas on the map are the different counties that make up the state of Alabama. The distinction between the blue ones and the white ones is really simple. One type of county allows the sale of alcohol, and the other, well, it still has a form of prohibition, and alcohol sales are banned. So, if you were wanting to market alcohol, you would choose geographical areas where they're allowed, and you'd reject as potential markets geographical areas where alcohol sales were not allowed. If you're in the land industry, obviously bits of land just over the border between a wet county and a dry county, particularly valuable for supermarkets perhaps, where someone can sell alcohol for customers to drive over the county line, stock up the car and go home again. That's geographical segmentation at its most simple form. And of course, there's still ways and products where geographical segmentation works pretty fine. In most cases, however, we need something else. What we see here on the right is the census of population and data for the state of Alabama. There's information here on income levels in a household, number of people within a household, different age groups, occupations, and all sorts of other characteristics. The census of population is spatially referenced, so if we look at the map on the left, it's possible to pick up a county and profile the people in it according to the census data. So that's what we call geodemographic segmentation. It's spatially referenced demographic data, a combination of the map and the table of information. And of course, in many countries, census data is very sophisticated. It's taken annually or every 5 years or every 10 years. And it can go right down to the postal or zip code in terms of the aerial unit on the map that the demographic data relates to. So this is based on the idea of birds of a feather flocking together. Different types of people live in different types of area, and we can profile a street, for example, according to the occupational category, income levels, age and status of the people living in that street. And that helps us target our market. Now, this is good. It's very sophisticated, but the problem is in most countries, the data is available to everyone. The census of population, for example, in Britain, in the US, in many other countries, we can all access it. And indeed, so can every business. And so, the data we have is also available to our competitors. So increasingly, what commercial data agencies do, or companies large enough to do this for themselves, like a massive supermarket chain, is they collect their own data, often on psychological or behavioral characteristics, and use it to enhance the publicly available data. So we might take census data, spatially referenced, and added information on lifestyles, attitudes and beliefs, personality or motivation, different perceptions of our products and brands, whatever it is. So we collect our own data and package it into the publicly available data or commercially purchased data, so that we have our own unique data set to engage in target marketing activities. And of course, it's a massive, massive industry, and there are lots of commercial systems out there. Acorn, for instance, a classification of residential neighborhoods, is one common. I'd like to highlight another one, Mosaic from Experian. Mosaic is available in many, many countries around the world, and what you see is essentially demographic data taken from the census and spatially referenced. And Experian are skilled at collecting massive data sets of their own, everything from financial metrics to lifestyle characteristics to attitudes and beliefs, all of the things we've been talking about, and they bundle it on a really huge scale into a segmentation system, Mosaic, that organizations can subscribe to. And Mosaic works by basically putting people into categories and coming up with archetypes, examples of people who would fit into a particular group. So what I've got on here are a couple of examples. Group A, consumers are sometimes called those driven by symbols of success. And you can see they're given names, Rupert and Felicity. They represent 9.62% of UK households, 7 different types of person within this group. And the images represent what, if you read the Mosaic manual, it would tell you. They're interested in travel, playing golf. They probably had to have an American Express card, the type of newspaper they buy, and so on. Similarly, Group B, the happy families. These are Darren and Joanne with their children. Nearly 11% of UK households. They shop at Sainsbury's supermarket. They typically have a MasterCard. 2-car households. They subscribe to satellite television, and so on. Mosaic can produce all these different categories, give you a profile of the people in them, highlight them on a map so that you can see where they are, and allow you to engage in target marketing activities. So that's Mosaic. Just one example of the many, many commercial profiling systems out there that we could use. So, to recap the basics of market segmentation, it's very, very rare that we can target the whole population, so we have to categorize people in different ways and decide which groups or segments we're going to go for as customers and which ones we're going to avoid, because we can't profitably or reliably or efficiently service them. There are a number of different ways of forming those groups of target customers. Basic geography is one characteristic, but combining that with demographic and psychographic data can enhance the competitiveness of our data set compared to those of our rivals. And there are a number of commercial profiling systems out there, such as Acorn, Cohorts, and of course Mosaic, which we could subscribe to in order to help us in that activity. So that's market segmentation at its most fundamental. Thank you very much.